Good afternoon. My name is Sila Bynoe, S-I-E-L-A-B-Y-N-O-E. I'm a legislator representing Legislative District 2. I'm joined here today by our minority leader, Legislator Kavan Abrahams, and the village mayor, Mayor Wayne Hall, Trustee Waylon Hobbs, as well as Legislator Carrie Salages. We have community organizations who are present today. We have NAN, National Action Network. We have New York Community for Change. We also have Andrina Wyatt representing the Village of Hempstead Housing Authority.
Did someone... I'm sure somebody's car.
I'm guessing it came from inside.
I mean, all right. There we go. Hope I didn't throw you.
We also have the Hempstead Coordinated Council of Civics that are joined here with us today. We are here today in front of the Garden City Jeep Chrysler Dodge dealership, weeks after Mr. Michael Velaklis took a gun of a colleague and aimed it at the head of young Mr. John and asked him, does this feel or look familiar? Mr. Velaklis, in a role that charged him with developing the career of young Mr. John, instead tortured and taunted him with a gun while making racial tinged remarks. Despite a time such as this, when we as a country are growing increasingly more security conscious, I suspect that young Mr. John could not have imagined that he would have such a violent act committed against him in his place of work, let alone by his manager. This atrocity is shocking to the sensibilities of those gathered here today and throughout this community. In unity, we are here today to express our outrage and speak out against the injustice that Mr. John suffers. We are also here to thank the district attorney, Madeline Singers, for further review of the case, in which we anticipate upgraded charges that Mr. Velaklis will face when he returns, or I should say when he's due in court on August 28, 2016. At this time, I invite our minority leader, Kavan Abrahams, to the podium to expand upon the charges that we anticipate will be brought against Mr. Velaklis and also other thoughts that we may have on this. Thank you.
Thank you, Legislator Bynoe. My name is Kavan Abraham. For those in the press who I do not know, it's spelled K-E-V-A-N A-B-R-A-H-A-M-S, and I am the minority leader and a Nassau County legislator as well. First, I can never say I am glad to be here whenever we're talking about an incident that should never happen in 2016 in this country, or anywhere in the world for that matter. That being said, we are here. And the sensitivities that have been put in place, it's shocking that we are here on this day where those sensitivities still are not addressed. Legislator Bynoe talked a little bit about some of the charges being escalated. I've had subsequent conversations with the district attorney's office and those in law enforcement who have assured me that when Mr. Velaklis shows up for his desk appearance, the charges would be escalated to a felony charge. That, to me, is the minimum. But I am glad to see that the district attorney got it right, and I'm glad to see that she examined and looked at the case. That being said, the outrage that the folks behind us, that the community feels, is not just about the incident that happened here. It's obviously the communication that's necessary with our law enforcement to ensure that public justice occurs on every level of our community. And it may have occurred on this particular case, but we need a proper review of all the facts that were in place so that we can give not just the folks and Mr. John the confidence that justice will be served, but we need to be able to give the folks, the little kid on Terrace Avenue, or the family on Perry Street, they need to have the confidence that when the police show up that they will do what's responsible and what's required. And that may be the facts, but we need to make sure we have a review so we can put that confidence even forward. Look, folks, this should have never happened. And to me, it's unconscionable that we have a sales manager that's in charge, like Legislator Bino said, in charge of making sure he develops young people and people that work under him in charge, pull out a weapon in a place of business on a young man that was no threat and posed no crime to this establishment or to this community. It is unconscionable that in this day and age that we have an individual that's not looking at what's going on in the world, looking at what's going on in the U.S., and not thinking, is this the wisest thing to do, even though the gun may have been unloaded. To me, I believe that that's the most egregious case of all, is that the lack of common sense and sensitivity in this matter. That being said, we look forward to the review of the entire case, and obviously we stand strong and committed to the community that Legislator Bino, Legislator Szilagyi, the mayor, the deputy mayor, the community organizations all represent. We remain committed to our resolve to ensure that every single individual in this community has the confidence in their law enforcement, and obviously, quite frankly, the confidence in the communities that they choose to franchise and choose to purchase items from. But thank you again.
At this time, I'll ask Village Mayor Wayne Hall to come to the podium and share his thoughts.
It's so lucky. Good afternoon. Sitting here listening to Bino and Devon Abraham, we here at the village surely agree that this was a heinous incident that happened here. But I must say that we here in the village are dedicated to ensuring that justice is uniform throughout the incorporated village of Hempstead. And with respect to arrests, like the police department followed the letter of the law with how they treated defendants and victims. Criminal Procedure Law Section 150.20 and 150.4 permits an officer to issue a disciplinary ticket for certain crimes. And with respect to the arrest of Michael Valenkis, admittedly a sensitive arrest given the nature of the allegation, my police department followed the criminal law procedure when they issued him a disciplinary ticket. We have worked very hard at reducing crime in my village, and my police department routinely work on policies and procedures which will continue to decrease in the crime in the village. And has seen an overall decrease in the past few years. However, all of our policies and procedures must indeed comply with the law to ensure that justice is constitutionally administered. So we're hoping that the DA has upgraded the charges, and whatever Mr. Valenkis is charged with, that he serves his time. Thank you.
Trustee Waylon Hobbs, please.
Just before Waylon Hobbs speaks, we are also joined by trustee of the Village of Freeport, Carmen Pinero.
Good afternoon. As the mayor stated earlier, our police department followed the criminal procedure law to the letter of the law. As a trustee that sits over the police department, we are always making sure that our police department act in compliance with the law, and we are always working to update our policies and procedures to make sure that residents of Village of Hempstead are served the right way. And so again, thank you.
So at this time, we'll field questions.
Well, considering that the mayor and the trustee just said that the police acted within what the law dictates, what is it, and that the person was fired by the place here, what is it we think should have been done instead, and what's lacking?
Well, we think at this point that the process warrants a review. Whether policies that are currently in place will follow remains to be answered as far as I think the community is concerned, but even further than that would be whether the current policies that are in place, whether they in fact are effective.
Dr. Vaughn, maybe you have more current information than I'm asking here, but I called the DA's office an hour and a half ago, and they said they were investigating whether or not charges could be upgraded. And that at this point they had to speak up publicly anyway to indicate that they would pursue that, only that they were investigating whether charges could be upgraded. You said you have some sort of assurance?
Yeah, my conversations have been with the DA's office since the middle of last week, which they have assured me that actually they believe that they came out and announced the higher charges in a previous report that came out, I believe, by WPIX, where they announced the higher charges. They said that was already publicly documented, but they felt that they have already notified the defendant's attorneys, have notified the defendant that when he shows up for his desk appearance ticket later on this month, that he will be also facing a higher charge as well.
What do you think should be done differently than what we've seen here?
Well, I definitely believe that, number one, the highest charge should be out. Legislator Bino and I have discussed this thoroughly. To have a desk appearance ticket is no different than someone drinking a beer in public, or someone, as gross as it may sound, publicly urinating. To me, it doesn't sound like it passes the smell test to most folks here in Nassau County. I think most folks in Nassau County would expect if somebody pulls out a weapon on me or anybody, they would expect that that person would at least be facing some type of level of felony in regards to any of the charges being menacing or reckless endangerment. I mean, look, the folks that were here, unless it was a prank, they didn't realize that that gun was unloaded. To me, there's a reckless. What if somebody ran out in the street, running for their life, got hit by a car because they're running away from a mad salesman that chooses to pull a gun out at a place of business? Then you're talking about a murder charge. So from that standpoint, it can be escalated very easily. And I think what the most important thing is that the district attorney, from what I understand in my discussions with her, appears and is ready to escalate the charge. We won't know that until the August 28th date, but more importantly, if there's an investigation that needs to go through a process, we support that investigation. It's necessary for it to go forward.
Do you feel there was any double standard here, that there's any racial aspect to how this all played out, considering this? The way this person was treated overall by being dismissed and what he was charged with?
Well, I'm sure that there has to be some level of history based off of the documentation and some of the things that I've seen in regards to what the young man has said that he's experienced here. I find it quite interesting that a gun was pointed, could have been pointed at anybody, and he chose to pick it at Mr. John. So from that standpoint, it definitely appears that there could be a racial overtone. I mean, from that also, it could be also very possible and very likely that you could charge this as a biased crime. But I think the district attorney is right in the sense that she has to do her due diligence. She has to go through the process. There could be even more charges than what has been presented to me last week.
Do you think it should be a hate crime?
Yes. Based on what I've seen, based on what I'm hearing, based on the testimony I've heard from Mr. John, yes, I do believe it could be escalated to a hate crime as well. But I am not in law enforcement. Law enforcement is the only ones that are presented those facts. Detectives are presented those facts. The district attorneys presented those facts. We are not presented those facts. So we need to see the facts. But as we've seen what's been publicly presented to us, yes.
Is there someone here from the alleged victim's family, the former employee, that can say anything?
I don't believe anyone's present.
Are there any other cases against this manager that you've heard of where there is a racial undertone that they've done in the workplace, or is it just this one incident so far with the gun being pointed?
I haven't heard any. Only thing I've heard is innuendo. I haven't heard anything in terms of factual cases.
but you feel this is relevant for what the community here and throughout the country is going through at this time, and evaluation between relations between police and minority communities. Does this have some context here?
Well, I believe that community at large feels that there's a lot of questions that remain unanswered, and given the fact that there is a sense that the comment definitely was racially tinged, that there is an overall concern as to how the case will be treated moving forward.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.